Um, yeah. How was your day today?
Oh, it's been all right. Yeah, it's about, well, as you know, it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon so far. So morning was fine. Just got my cup of tea at the moment.
Okay. Last time I tried to stream, and it took a couple of tries to actually go, because what I'm doing is I'm going through. I'm doing it through OBS, and sometimes it doesn't work perfectly, especially if you're doing a couple of things.
Live.
Yeah, I think it's on
my phone, on my watch.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, let's get started. Sorry. So, what did you do today?
Well, today just had an online class for an hour or so, and then, I just had a cup of tea and had breakfast, and my wife is cooking some Korean food.
Excellent. Do you know which Korean food?
It's similar to kimchi jjigae, but it's quite similar to kimchi jjigae. We've got some pork belly and kimchi, and they're just putting it all together, sort of hot pot or something like that.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's get started. I'm going to say hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the live chat. With me, I've got a really special guest today. His name's Martin. He's got a YouTube channel. He's one of the commenters on this channel too. His channel's name on YouTube is called ELT Experiences. So if you're here, Elsa, I can see you. Hi, Elsa. Whoever's here, just put your name in the comments and say hello. If you have any questions during the live stream, please put them in there, and we're going to talk about this. So yeah, Martin and I, we've been chatting for the last couple of months, I guess, but this is the first time. Today is the first time that we're actually talking on Skype. So without further ado, let me first, Martin. Hi.
Yeah. Hi, Eric. And hello everyone on YouTube, eh?
So, today we're going to talk about teaching, and it's so nice for me. Last week I had Migam on, and she's an aspiring teacher. She's training, but you've got a certain amount of experience. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been an English language teacher for nearly 15 years now, and I first started teaching kids in South Korea back in 2005, and I was teaching kids for quite a while, for about 14 months, and then all I had with regards to my experience was just a degree, and that was it. That was all you needed back in 2005. So I turned up. I had no idea what I was doing, teaching kids who could probably see through me. I didn't know what I was doing. They could probably tell I was an awful teacher. And then after about 12 months, I thought, actually, I really enjoy teaching. I enjoyed teaching English. And I decided to do a CELTA course at the British Council in Seoul, near Gwanghwamun. And that went really well. It was a 4-week intensive course, and and then I went back to the UK and learned how to teach English all over again, because I hadn't all the experience I had was monolingual classes and Korean students, and that was it. And I was thrown into an elementary class of Arab students, and I had no idea what I was doing. I felt a bit wet behind the ears, and I was teaching for this school for about a year or two, and then I decided to do an MA in English language teaching, try and improve myself again, because I felt a bit of a newbie, a bit amateurish, and I'd done the MA at the University of Sussex, and whilst I was doing the MA, I did a diploma in English language teaching. And and then that was it. I just continued on from there.
Okay, wow, that's a lot. Yeah, so you came to Korea, you taught here first. How was that experience, suddenly going into it? First, I think I need to figure out on how do I put this into split screen again. Sorry, I don't use Skype a lot. I've been using Zoom a lot, so I'm trying to put us into split screen. I know everyone can see me well. I'll figure that out. So when you first started teaching ESL here in Korea, what was that experience like? That was your first time walking into a classroom as well?
Yeah, it was first time, other than being a student myself, but first time actually being there as a teacher. And I remember the evening before I started my first class at the Hagwon, at the private language school that I was teaching at, and I was getting stressed and worried about everything, and I spent the entire night just sitting down trying to figure out what am I going to teach these kids. I picked up a grammar and use book that my wife was using many years ago, and vocabulary and use, and I decided to do a grammar lesson, but it and I spent hours just trying to work out what to do and how to do it and how to teach it. And then I walked into the class, and I was nervous as anything, and more nervous than the kids. They had this new foreign teacher there, and I just felt out of place. And it took me a couple of months to actually find my rhythm, find my groove. And but as you know, Korean students, they're very very friendly, very hospitable, and they have huge respect for teachers in the classroom, and that gave me the opportunity to find my place and for them to be patient enough for with me.
Okay. Did you have it sounds like at least you went into it and you started putting in the time and the work to try and figure out how to get things done. And I think sometimes those things that we learn at the start, some of the techniques that we use at the start, maybe we those are sometimes some of the best ones we can use, and we just refine it. So, for example, for me, it always worked. I think that one of the things that I immediately started doing when I got to Korea is trying to work on my relationships with my students, and really try and get to know them. And even today, I think back on how I interacted with a lot of those students, how that went. But what's sad is, I think with any type of teaching, now that I think about it, is, it's sad when those students move on, and it's something we don't really talk about as teachers. I think while I was teaching in South Africa, it was a lot easier to stay connected to my students, and maybe now with social media, I can also talk to students, but you often wonder what happened to those students. Do you have any connections to any of them still?
Well, funny enough, I went back to Korea a couple of years back, and I met up with my old boss, my old Hanjangnim, and it was really weird meeting up with him again, because he wasn't my director, at that point. And we went out for samgyeopsal and soju, sort of, it's the pork belly strips which are cut down, and you have really strong alcohol in Korea, and we ended up having this and just enjoying ourselves together. And he actually phoned up one of his old students that I used to teach, and I was having a chat with him, and he was doing his military service at that time and planning to go to university, and it was really weird seeing them when they were like 10 or 11 years old, but then leap ahead 10 years later, and they're already doing a military service or doing their university study, and they're pursuing whatever they want to do, and it's quite interesting that way. But it's funny, today when I went back in December last year, I kept in touch with some of the students that I taught. One of my students, funny enough, came to the UK and studied at a university nearby us, and she went to the University of Brighton, and to see how she's developed herself as, a 16-year-old studying English and then going back to the UK to study in a university and then returning back to Korea, and she's actually become a teacher herself, a teacher of English.
I think that's one of the nicer things. So I'm looking at this, and it's so I'm trying to enable split view mode. It just doesn't work. So I don't think people are going to see me. They're just going to see you in this one. I don't know why it doesn't work. Well, I think every week I'm trying to figure it out, but that's how it goes.
we've got a question here from Galina.
Yeah.
It says, could you repeat today's topic, please? I was late.
Thank you so much, Galina, and thank you, Martin, for bringing it out. I was trying to figure out the split screen. Okay, well, we're just going to go with it like this. I think so. Actually, everyone, today we're starting 1 hour earlier than usual. We usually start at 2, but I thought I'd try it out, and also with Martin's schedule, we decided we'll do it 1 hour earlier. So, Galina, thank you for that question. I didn't start off well, you know, I'm quite surprised. Actually, today's topic, I'm going to be speaking with Martin. We're going to talk about teaching in general. We're going to talk about stresses that teachers go through, and we're also going to talk about professional development. Okay, and I think, well, that's a good one. So, guys, one of the questions I have to you is, you know, if you have any questions, put it in the comments. But I think let's talk about what stresses you out as a teacher. So think about it. And we've also got Christina here. Hi, Christina. You are not late. You're perfectly on time. So what stresses do you have as a teacher? And I'm going to put this on you, Martin, since you're the only one we can see. What stresses do you have that, you know?
Gosh. Well, there's a variety of different stresses that are involved if you're a teacher. There's the stress of doing the admin work, you know, outside of teaching and keeping on top of all the admin that I find. Also planning lessons and delivering suitable lessons and that sort of thing. That's really, you know, quite stressful, and ensuring that students are enjoying the quality lessons that you're delivering. On top of that, managing a good work-life balance and ensuring that, you know, you're not just focusing solely on work, because your life, you know, life outside of work will be detrimented from that. And yeah, and just trying to find time for yourself to decompress once you've taught a term or a course, or, you know, and there's a lot involved with stress and teacher well-being, I think.
Okay, yeah, I think, you know, I think it's just like there's an expression that if you become rich, you know, you still have problems, but the quality of your problems change, or the type of problems that you have. And I think that is exactly the same. Christina just said, Eric, you put on a shirt. Thank you for noticing, Christina. I know, trying to look a little bit more professional. And I said, nobody can see me, but she said, Eric, you're in the right-hand corner. I am there. So I think the same applies to if we had a teacher that's very new to the profession. I think what they go through is they are suddenly in control of these students, and they might be worried about their classroom management, about, you know, doing all the activities, getting the points and doing the assessments, you know. And also it's, I think, you know, it's human nature that we don't want to feel judged. That's the other thing is, you know, so I remember going into my classroom when I was a younger teacher, and I would think, man, I don't want any other parents, I don't want any of the teachers see me fail as a teacher, you know, not being able to teach the students well and not being able to control the classroom. And now, as you say, as you get more experience and you become more comfortable, it's not that suddenly you run out of problems. Now you're starting to think now you've got higher level problems where it's like, okay, well, how do we work with, how do we reach all the students? How do we improve, you know, how do we strike that work-life balance, you know, how do we have enough energy? How do we work with parents, you know, and then also, I think also when you become more experienced, maybe the workload also changes, where you have to start managing other teachers and helping them instead of just focusing on your own things. So let's go back a bit. So I think the biggest thing most teachers struggle with when they first start teaching, I think the first one is that absolute fear. And the thing that stresses them out the most is classroom management. So do you have perhaps this is something we always, like I cover a lot in my channel, and I'm sure you do too, because this is one of the most important topics. So are there any tips or anything that you would like to talk about with regards to a new teacher going in and classroom management?
Okay, well, I suppose what what you've got to look at is if you're entering the classroom fresh and you're new and you're worried about classroom management, it's such a huge topic itself, classroom management. But let's split it up into kids and adults, because they're both slightly different, aren't they? And if you're teaching kids, the biggest thing that kids thrive on is routine, and that expectation, that prediction of what is going to happen next. So I would recommend teachers that try and keep a routine and something which is predictable rather than something which is unexpected or unpredictable. I'm not saying that you can't do something unexpected to keep that interest, but initially when you're starting out, spend a couple of minutes doing a sort of chart with the kids. So, like, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm good. And that sort of thing, getting them engaged. And then next one, do the register, and then individual students and that sort of thing. But that's kids, myself. But when it comes down to adults, you can start to loosen up on the routine. Of course, you got the routine of warm-up and lead-ins and, generating that interest in the lesson, but it's not as rigid as kids. So that's my initial advice, I guess, when it comes down to classroom management routine.
I think, it's so fantastic. We say that, teaching, every teacher is different, and everybody brings their own personality, their own style, their own experience, their own knowledge to teaching. But you got to start thinking about the things you can control. We're all in a classroom, we all have students, we all have a set amount of time, we all have certain things that we want to do with that class. So start thinking about the things you can control, and then the things you can control are those procedures and routines in the classroom. So, for example, for me too, I've now, you do things and you see what works. And so, I start my class the same way. Students come in, greet them, do the register, and they get used to it. And then at the end, the last couple of minutes, I would ask them some questions and then, say goodbye to them. And I would have a similar structure to my class too, the same procedures, they get to know it. So we as teachers, the more you do things that work, the more you're going to become more comfortable with it. So what we can tell new teachers is, we can give them some tips on procedures and rules that they can have in their classroom just to make it a lot easier. You can. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, another thing that you could think about is actually the layout of the classroom. Usually it's fixed. It's either in a horseshoe or you've got rows of desks. And, if there's different activities that you can use to change the layout. So if you're going to do a sort of, a sort of questionnaire or survey, get all the desks or get the students to move all the desks and chairs out of the way, and then get them standing up and moving around and generating that sort of thing, because that itself, that change of the environment will be refreshing for the students as well. So try and think about what you can do physically in the classroom.
Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, I think, like you said, we do push routine and things to do, but I think there should be 10% of new things that you try and bring in each semester. And I remember, this brings me back to something a teacher taught me. Oh, by the way, my mom says, persistence. He speaks slow enough for me to catch all the ideas. Excellent. I think they're talking about you, Martin. Excellent. Persistence. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, please put it in the comments below. Martin, can I ask you a favor? Can I quickly restart this Skype? I just want to see if I can put us side by side.
Sure.
It'll take 1 second. So everyone, while we're doing this, please put in your questions and we'll get right back on it. Okay, now I'm gonna enable split view. Okay, now I'm there. Okay, split. Where is split view? Disable. No, okay, no. It says split view is here. Man, What is it with the Skype and me? We just don't get along. It's supposed to enable split view. How do you see me? Does it look split?
I can see you quite large.
Yeah, it's just the way that I do this one, people can only see my screen. So I haven't tried to stream through this through Skype. Anyway, so I guess people just won't see me. Next time I'll try and figure this out. Split view is on though, it's so weird.
Strange, right?
Okay, anyway, we'll continue. Galina says, yes, you are right. There are always students who can cope with the material despite the teacher's great efforts. Yeah, that's very true. We will always have students that go around. And Elsa says, considering all I have been learning so far, and most of it with you, Eric, I think our energy affects our students' performance as well. And Will Bello says, what's your experience abroad? And then starting a meeting instead of calling him directly. Christina's a genius.
Maybe that's the idea. How to start a meeting.
Okay, how do you start a meeting with us?
I've got no idea. Maybe Plan for ESL has an idea of how to do it.
She's really good with Skype. It's my first time using Skype. The reason is last time Zoom was a bit slow. So that's why I was... No, I don't want to share anything except... Okay. Yeah, the only other thing is that. Anyway, guys, you're going to look at Martin. So Martin, besides teaching in Korea, do you have... Will ask, do you have any other experience abroad?
I've got experience teaching in Romania for about 9 months. I used to work for the British Council out there, teaching English, of course, to kids and adults and some university lecturers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only experience I've got teaching abroad, so just South Korea and Romania, and then teaching foreign students in the UK.
Online too. Okay, Martin, I figured it out. Well, I didn't figure it out. Christina told me everything. I'm going to stop the call one more time, and I'm going to call you and meet you one more.
Third time lucky.
Yeah, let's try it. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Christina. And share invite, copy link, and then we give it to Martin. Paste, go. Okay. Yeah, start call. I think we'll find out now. Christina, I hope you've got it.
Are we here? Have we got it?
We've got it, but it's exactly the same. Okay, well, I think I'll figure it out later. Anyway, so back to stresses. So we said before, classroom management is a stress. The next question I have for you is, how do you plan your content, your curriculum? So if let's say you're teaching in a school, you're doing a certain grade or a certain subject, how do you plan your curriculum? How do you usually go about it?
Wow, it's a big area. All right, for kids, I would. In the UK, the context is that the kids come over for a couple of weeks and then they go back to their own country, so they're only here for a short time. So in the UK, the curriculum is only for a short period of time. What I found worked with kids was basically using a topic or a theme and following that each day rather than actually the grammar or the language. And the language would be secondary from the actual theme. So, for example, movies, and then trying to think out, I would write down, okay, I'm going to do movies, that's the theme, and what can I do about movies? Is there a project? Okay, they could do a movie poster, they could do an interview, they could get a clip from a movie, that's been released, and you've got the advert for the movie, and they can do a voiceover for that, or something quite creative. And that's what I would think about when it comes down to kids that they come into the UK for a short time. But working at the university now in the UK, the curriculum is over a particular term, and when it came down to teaching adults within a higher educational setting, I would organise the lessons based on a particular unit and the units I would have to follow and then try and finish the course book within a particular term. So I'd use the course book as a sort of springboard, and that's how I would refer to it. And then when I was in Korea teaching kids, I had a course book as well, and I'd have to follow the course book but do various other things outside of it. And I think the course book itself helps you plan for lessons over a particular period of time. But if you're going to be delivering a topic like intercultural communication, which doesn't necessarily have a course book, then you need to think about, okay, what do I want to deliver, and how will I break it down, and what will the students have to achieve at the end of this term or at the end of the course, and what the assessment criteria? Do they have to write an essay? Do they have to analyze a business and their cultural communication strategies, or that sort of thing? So it depends whether you've got a course book or not, but
okay.
I hope that helps.
I'm going to go on that now, but Christina asks, do you prefer teaching kids or adults? No lies.
Actually, I love teaching kids. I really wish I could be teaching kids again, but I don't mind. I really don't mind whether I teach kids or adults. They're both different in some respects, but when the kids get older, you start to see how they are as adults. And if you can teach kids at a young age and get them through, you can see how they develop and flourish when they're adults as well.
I think one of the things about, we're talking about stresses that we have as teachers, and I think one of the things, so you said how you plan for your curriculum. I think one of the biggest things I worried about is sometimes you go into an academy, or you go into class, or something happens, but you walk into a classroom and they don't have a course book. That is a horrible feeling where they tell you, listen, you have to create your own curriculum. And for many teachers, that is so stressful, because suddenly, even though you've got all this experience, you've got all these books that you work with, now suddenly out of nowhere, you're supposed to create a curriculum. And that is not an easy thing if you haven't practiced for it. And
especially if you're new as well.
Especially if you're new. I remember in the past, I was teaching some classes, or it wasn't, they just said, listen, you've got to teach these kids for a couple of weeks. I had no set curriculum, I had no books, and I just thought, what am I supposed to do when you don't have a backbone? So a lot of teachers right now that are also teaching online, suddenly they think, oh, what do I have to do each week with these students? Or let's say you're doing a part-time job where you've got to train, you've got to go and work with a group. So the first thing I would suggest to anyone out there who is worried about what they need to do is go and find a book. There are professionals out there that have spent hours and thousands of hours working and creating the material. So you can go through books, find something that you're comfortable with, but you need a backbone for your curriculum. And once you have that basic curriculum, you know how long you're going to teach for, what you want to work through, if it's the grammar, if it's the topics. From there, you can start working on activities, and then from there, you can create additional material. But I think don't put too much pressure and stress on yourself by trying to reinvent the wheel with everything that's been done before. And I think this is something I just want to ask you, because I'm curious, and I know you've got a vast amount of knowledge. So I think the thing is, teaching is actually relatively new when compared to many other things. What do you think you've learned, while studying for your degree, or CELTA, or what is some of the best knowledge that you think that you've learned while studying to prepare for teaching?
The CELTA itself, the biggest thing that I learned or acquired during that course was actually seeing professional teachers, being able to observe professional teachers with huge amounts of experience themselves, going in the classroom and just seeing how they do it, how they interact with the students, how they deliver content. And for me, that was immeasurable. It was huge. I never been able, because back by then I was just shown the door to my classroom by my director at the school. He said, well, that's your class, you're going to be going in there tomorrow, good luck, and here's the course book. And but for me to actually go into a classroom and see another teacher and see how they teach and what they do and how they do it, that was great. But then also having the opportunity to observe people that are also in the same position as me, being a relatively new teacher back then, and experimenting, seeing what works, seeing what didn't work, seeing how things could be improved, and then getting the feedback from the trainers. That was the practical elements of the course were great. It was fantastic. When it came down to the MA, obviously studying an MA, you develop the knowledge and the awareness of language acquisition, second language acquisition, teaching methodology, and that in itself will inform your practice, your teaching practice, and you better understand why things work rather than what worked best. What works best. So you go, okay, I'm going to do this because I understand it benefits the students better, rather than doing that in a methodological aspect, I guess. I hope that answers the question.
Perfectly. No, I totally understand. I think, like you said, the best way to learn, to learn is by watching someone with experience do it and then copying what works, But if you go in there blind, or you have nothing to base it on, then it's very difficult. And then the second part, once you've got that down, once you've got that down, then you can start learning how to actually teach a language. Now we've got a question here by Will, and he asks, how can you deal with kids with a completely different alphabet, culture, and with so much social limitations? So here's the thing: is both of us we've got experience teaching in Korea. Obviously, it's a totally different language, and we specialize in teaching English as a second language. So we deal a lot with students who don't speak English. They speak something else at home. Their parents only speak Chinese or Korean. Their whole society, nobody speaks English around them. So suddenly they have to go into the classroom, or when they're going online, and you've got to suddenly interact with them in a different language. I think it's so fun having you here, because obviously I've got my own way I would answer it, but now I'm just so fortunate I just push it on to you. I'm like, so Martin, what do you think about it? How do you deal with kids with a different language, and also how do you interact with them?
Great delegation. Okay, well, basically, if it comes down to the alphabet and you're teaching kids with the alphabet, I do a lot with flashcards. Flashcards are great. You can make your own. You can get the students to make flashcards, or you go to the British Council. You can print them off. You can get them coloured in and laminated. Definitely recommend laminating flashcards, because you can use them again and again and again. And what I would do is I'd do sort of drilling techniques, with the A and that, the phonic sounds and that sort of thing. Then I'll put the alphabet on the whiteboard, get them into 2 rows, and do a sort of a swatting game, and I shout out a letter and they have to swat it, and the one that gets it first gets a point, and put them into 2 teams, and they get quite active in that way. That's how I would teach, and get them to memorize and remember that.
I'm going to jump in here quickly and just say hello to Saima. It's one of the Saima came in. Saima, sorry for usually I'm an hour later, but we jumped in, and I'm going to add to that. I think the thing is, children are children, people are people, and as teachers, what makes teachers successful is that we use things that work. And when you work with younger learners, you're going to use visual aids. You're going to make learning fun, just like Saima said here. She said kids love through play. Now, what I would do is exactly the same. I would start, I would talk to the kids. I would talk slowly and loudly. I'll smile to them. So number one, they feel comfortable with the social interaction. I think that's part of what Will was asking is, how do you, the social limitation. So once the students know that, okay, we don't speak the same language, but this teacher is trying to be friendly and they're trying to make me feel relaxed and calm in the classroom. And then you start bringing out the flashcards so that they can actually start learning the words and you can start explaining things to them. And, I bet Saima and Christina, you've had this experience before where if you've got a young student coming into your classroom and they're so excited to see you, they love you and they want to just explain something that happened, and they can't speak English very well, but because they're so excited, they use what little vocabulary they have, and the rest they use body language. And as teachers, that happens when you build a relationship with a student that doesn't speak the same language as you. So number one, you got to start working on building on that relationship. And then from there, what I would say is exactly the same. From there, you're going to use the flashcards. You're going to use songs. You're going to use games. You're going to, like you said, the fly swat game, or just I like to use board games, board races, anything like that, where you put the students into groups and then they have to use the flashcards. They have to start using sentences, and that's how it builds up. And that's a question that we have for the younger learners. But I'm going to change this a little bit. And Christina says she makes the adults play games too. And I've become used to teaching adults. I'm sure if I go into a classroom with younger students, I'll switch on because we've done it. But I wanted to ask you this. So, what do you do when you first meet? Let's start with adults. If you go into a classroom and you meet adult English learners for the first time, how would you say you go about things? And now you're going to think about this. See, it's so much fun just throwing questions.
Well, the thing is, for me, it just seems so natural when I go into the classroom now, because I've been teaching for 14, 15 years, and I go into the classroom and I know what works, and I know how to get a reaction from the adults, and how to make it quirky and fun and interesting, where that immediate nervousness, even though I feel nervous myself when I first go in, that nervousness that they have dissipates and disappears. And so for me, what I would go in and do is I go into the class and I try and learn the students' names, and I do various icebreakers and warmers, and I put down three sentences to the adult learners, and I say, and for teenage learners as well, I put down 3 sentences about myself, and I get them to choose which one's true, which one's false. And so, I end up putting down, I've lived in 6 countries, I can read and write Korean, and I'm 40 years old. And my age is always the one which is false, because I realise that they go, you can't speak Korean, you haven't lived in 6 countries, and they immediately think that my age is correct anyway, but it's false. And then what I do is I turn it round to them and I say, okay, they say, how old are you? And I say, well, how old do you think I am? And they go, I didn't expect you to do that. I didn't expect you to ask me how old you are, because it's sort of, it's kind of rude to put the students in that situation where they have to get a teacher's age. And I go, right, okay, tell me my age. Come on. I'm gonna tell you. It's so funny because I do the exact same thing. But before I get there, I just want to say this. Christina says, I'll never forget one time when my 7-year-olds explained to me that she told everybody's boyfriends and girlfriends, so a little girl comes in and says, they're boyfriends and girlfriends. They get so excited about it. And then Saima said, adults, we can expect them to have more abstract thoughts. They're grown up. We don't have to worry about that. But Will says something funny. Will says, sometimes in some schools in Thailand, you can't be too extroverted with your class because they think
you're from another planet. Now, culture is very important, but Will, if you are naturally extroverted, that's fine, go with it and interact with your students. If you are introverted, you're still going to want to express yourself and interact with the students, because that's your job as a teacher. Now, the same thing applies when you use when I record myself for YouTube. We have to the camera eats a lot of energy, so we have to be more expressive, and the same counts for teachers too. As teachers, when we go into that classroom, you want to raise the energy a little bit so that the students also get excited and they want to learn. It's all up to you. We call it classroom management, but it's also energy management. You want to keep the class. You can take them up, get them excited at the start of the class, and then while they're doing activities, they're going to be excited, and then you bring them back down again for writing activities, and then at the end of the class, you get them excited. It's all up to you how you manage creativity. John, you made it. John says, my students get used to playing skits based on lessons. I'm going to get to that, John, but first, I quickly want to add to what you said, that first class. Now, what I do with my first class, same thing. I write down the two truths and the one lie. I usually write, I'm really good at chess. I'm a chess champion or something, and then the second one is I hate seafood, and the last one is I've got 3 brothers. But I tell the students they have to ask me they get to ask me questions to figure out which one is the lie. And they would say, Eric, what seafood do you eat? And I would say, I eat crab and octopus and fish. And they're like, and then they say, they would ask me a number of questions. What's your brothers' names? And I'll be like, Paul, Douglas, Joshua, and then it'll be like, that one's the line. I'm like, no, it's actually number 2. I don't like seafood. And then it's all about getting the students to interact with you too. So at the end of the class, I tell my students everybody should have a question for me. So have 2 questions that you can ask me. So then they ask me a question, and I ask them a question to start to get them ready for interaction. And I'm going to get you to talk about this one. Christina just says, my experience with Thai students is the opposite. They are too open about their thoughts and feelings with amazing American accents. So here we have 2 teachers with different experiences with some students. But Martin, before we go on, I want to talk about John's what John said. He said, my school students used to play skits based on lessons, and this isn't one of the things that we're going to talk about. But how do you feel about role play in the classroom? How do you feel about role play in the classroom?
Well, when I first started teaching, I thought role play was kind of what was it? Unauthentic.
Yeah.
Not really. Not a real lesson. You're gonna. It's kind of artificial. It's not real communication. That's what I thought, and it took me a long time to develop the confidence to actually go, right, actually I'm going to do a role play and get students to pretend that they're certain roles, And I found that role plays are great for functional language, so if you're booking a hotel or you're checking out of a hotel or, getting a coffee or going to the supermarket, it's really, really useful for that and surviving in certain situations. But my feeling is that it's not real. I prefer natural communication and developing the confidence where students can interact immediately and spontaneously with each other, and so for my MA, I focused on a sort of what was called Teaching Unplugged or DOGME ELT, and it was really focusing on 100% student conversation skills and developing emergent language and scaffolding language where there was errors involved and trying to develop the confidence for the students. And role play is great for kids, but I don't feel it's that great for adults. I think they need something more than just role play.
So I wouldn't use my entire lesson for role play, but I feel like for me it's when I first started teaching, I also said, I just want to either teach grammar and teach active conversations, real life conversations, but I read some books about how some students are raised. So let's say a kid goes to, you have to take your son to the doctor because he has to get a checkup. Now, what good parents do is they role play with their kids before they go to the doctor. Okay, Johnny, I'm the doctor, ask me some questions. So they, what problems do you have? So the child practices with the parents, they role play. So I think role play is an easy way to, it's like training for the real environment. And especially with ESL, where a lot of students, we train them or we teach them for certain situations, asking for directions or, explaining something, or going overseas and you have to go to the bank and ask for something. So we practice situations, but besides those situations, we also want to put in some real life conversations that they can do too.
You've reminded me of a time when I took a load of Korean students from my first Hagwon that I was teaching at, and I took, I think, about 6 or 7 students, and I brought them over to the UK for them to experience the culture and the life in the UK. And one thing that I did was I was preparing them for that immigration, getting through immigration, because it's like really quite a stressful environment going through immigration. And I said, okay, I'm going to give you some questions, and I'm going to be the immigration officer, and I want you to answer. And then I trained them up so that when they got to the immigration officer, they could actually articulate what they were doing, why they were visiting the UK. And I think there's certain elements where you can actually train students, like you said, for certain situations.
Right. Well, we've got a question here, and I think Christina beat us to it. Okay, so here's what's going on. Elsa had experience teaching Thai students, but they're actually from an international school where Will works with public school students. So maybe a difference in students. That's definitely possible. But here, Elsa says, don't you think that icebreakers can make students too excited and too wild? And Elsa, Christina, what she did is she came in and she said, in my opinion, when students are younger, you need to have more control over the activity. That's completely right. I think, how do you feel about icebreakers? Do you use icebreakers in your classroom?
Me?
Yeah.
Yep, sorry. I use icebreakers all the time, particularly with a new class. But it depends on the sort of course that I'm delivering. If I'm delivering an 8-week or 10-week course on academic study or how to study in the UK university, then it's going to be very strict, very regimented, and certain things have to be done by the end of the course. But if it's just a general English course, then definitely icebreakers, and just developing that rapport with the students and ensuring that students trust you. And as I mentioned before, with routines, if you combine icebreakers with routines, or you end a lesson with a game and the students leave with a smile on the face, then I think that's great.
I feel exactly the same. And by the way, I'm just gonna just jump in here and quickly say, guys, if you want to check out Martin's channel, it's called ELT Experiences, and he also does live streams every Monday. It's for teachers, and every Wednesday it's for language learners, and he also covers a lot of the topics too. Now, what's very important, Elsa, So for me too, we talked about your structure in the classroom, and for me, I've spoken about it numerous times on the channel, what structure I use for my classes. I like to start with an icebreaker because I like to get the students excited and interested in the class. So I start with an icebreaker. I have a whole list of games and activities that I like to do with them. And even if I don't have games or activities, I'd like to have some kind of they're going to do some kind of conversation, or I'm going to do a meetup where, or what do they call it when you have to walk around and talk to everyone with a list of questions?
Yeah, like a survey or
a survey, right? They call it a survey, and in England they call it something else too. But anyway, a survey. They walk around. Whatever they're doing, I like an icebreaker to start up to get them excited, and then once they're done. But like Christina said, you want to be in control of it, and then after that, I bring them back to the lecture part where I talk to them and we do the writing, and then at the end we'll do some group work and then have fun at the end, and then so that it's controlling the structure of your class and also controlling the energy, because you want them to have fun. When they come into that classroom, you want them excited to see you, but if they know the structure and what happens, the routines, they'll be more settled too. Now, it says here, actually, Martin, it's so nice talking with you. We're going through this. It's just I forgot to check the split screen. That's the only thing that I'll fix next time. We said we're going to talk about teacher professional development. Can you talk a little bit about professional development?
Sure. Well, I suppose if you're a new teacher, or you want to become a English language teacher, I would recommend potential teachers to undergo a sort of training. Initial teacher training qualification, like the CELTA, or there's a Trinity Cert TESOL. There's various other options online, but they're not as internationally recognised or as prestigious as the CELTA or the Trinity Cert TESOL. But for teachers who've finished that, or they've had a couple of years' experience of teaching, then you've got to focus on specialising, I guess, and trying to specialise on certain topics or certain types of teaching. And I think a natural progress towards is maybe business English, for example, and teaching vocabulary related to business English and preparing, potential students to give a presentation, or having a meeting in English and that sort of thing. So there's specialisation with CPD, but there's also additional teacher qualifications that you could do. There's like the diploma or the Trinity DIP TESOL. Both are highly recognised, and then post diploma there's the MA, and then you get involved in academic English and teaching for university courses and terms and that sort of thing. So it depends on what you want to focus on, whether you want to specialise, whether you want to progress naturally through different qualifications, or examining it as well. There's certain opportunities to become a English examiner, with IELTS or FCE or the Cambridge Main Suite or the Pearson exams now.
I think that's well said. I think I always feel like like one of these online coaches where I talk about the mentality first, and it's where I always start. I think when you go and you become a teacher, they always say that you want to be a lifelong learner, because you want to project that to your students too. So if you're a lifelong teacher, what does that mean? It means that you've got to constantly improve yourself. But the problem that I have with it is they just say, oh, you've got to constantly improve yourself, instead of giving new teachers a framework or a roadmap on what do you improve. It's so what I would say is go into your first year of teaching and have some goals, right? Say, okay, and you know, goals should be manageable. So you can say, okay, I'm going into my first year of teaching. I want to get my classroom management done. I want to be able to you know, teach the basics of the subject. I want to be in control. I want to become knowledgeable on the content. So have some goals for yourself every year. And then after that, start saying, okay, you want to start joining some you know, some organizations, some teaching organizations where you can learn from other teachers. You want to start going to webinars. You're going to start looking for ways, well, watching YouTube channels like our own, you know, where we share some of our ideas. So you're going to, instead of just saying, I'm going to be a lifelong learner, I'm going to improve as a teacher, have these goals for yourself and make yourself a more complete teacher so that you've got the foundation. Once you've got that foundation, oh, sorry, yeah?
Yeah, so I completely agree with you. I think, you know, particularly joining a sort of association can help where you can connect with other teachers. But I would also urge new teachers to set up a blog and blog about their experiences and what worked well and what didn't work well. And one, I've mentioned it in my various streams before, but there's one teacher that I would always recommend looking at his blog, ELT Planning, and he was a colleague of mine, and he just started teaching at my school, my previous school, and I sat down with him and I said, look, you need to go do blogging because it's really engaging. You can start to connect with other teachers online through Twitter and through other websites, and he done it, and he just started blogging, and it's exploded, his website. And I would recommend get in touch, like you mentioned, get in touch with various associations and organizations like Code TESOL or some special interest groups, and try and share or give talks as well about what you did, and share it with other teachers, because I think for teachers themselves, they need that sort of confirmation, that affirmation that actually I went exactly through the same thing that you're going through, and it's nothing different to what you're experiencing now, and just keep going.
It's definitely a journey. I want to add something. Will says here you need to improve your teaching all the time, because a kid's inner world goes beyond any boundaries, and they really push you to, and this pushes you to improve. I think this goes with the, you know, your inner strength. As a teacher, you become more confident, but you should also become more confident as a teacher and as an individual, you know. Get more self-confidence. And I think that's really what it comes into, right? Well, you want to constantly improve, because if you become more confident in your craft, you will become better too. Now, what I want to say is, and this is what you said, so I said we have to build a foundation, and you added that we should start reaching out and we should start talking about these things. And it can be by filming yourself, it could be by blogging, it could be by chatting with other teachers, teaching organizations. But the one thing I want to mention afterwards is you said that, you know, you can start studying for your SALTA, your Delta, your M, you know, you can start studying and learning and you can start specializing. And this is something I want to really focus on, is you shouldn't just try and be, yes, I want to be the best teacher in what? Start focusing on something. It could be, you could go into curriculum, you can go into your subject, you can go into teacher management or leadership, you can go into all these different things. What we're doing is we're taking our experience and we're putting it online. But you want to be the, Matt Damon. Okay, who's Matt Damon? Is it Martin or is it me? I don't know. Anyway,
must be you.
Or maybe he's talking about maybe we said something similar to a Matt Damon movie. But the main thing is, what I would suggest to all teachers is find that base of confidence, and then after that, go and seek your what you want to specialize in to become great at it. Because you know, you don't just want to be a normal teacher. If your principal, if your wherever you're teaching, your district, if they're looking for someone to talk about something or to teach something, you should be the first person they go and seek. If they want someone to give a talk about classroom management or about curriculum or about this, whatever topic it is, find that specialization, become the best you can possibly be at it. And that is something I would like to tell teachers to do.
I would also add that, when it comes down to teaching, you may get further opportunities. You may be approached by your principal or various other staff. They say, oh, can you do this? And I would always say, just say yes, just do it, because you're going to be learning so much if you keep constantly agreeing to do different things and different projects. And then there's becomes a sense of like, oh wow, we can actually rely upon him. He's very good. He's, and then you're learning yourself, and you can reflect on, okay, I volunteered to do this, but it didn't work well. What could I do differently? And next time when I do it, I'll do it like that. And I think that's, put yourself out there, feel uncomfortable. I think it's really important to feel that sense of uncomfortability, because you start to learn that you can actually survive anyway. You're pushed in the deep end. I was thrown into the classroom when I first started, and it's like, there's your class, get in there. And it's like, well, actually I survived. It informed my teaching later on, what worked and what didn't. But then, feel uncomfortable, and you'll succeed anyway.
Don't be afraid of fear. I think someone in business, it could have been Elon Musk or someone, said, say yes and figure out how to do it later. Will says, I look like it's me, and Christina says, no pressure. Well, this is the other thing is, I think that is something I also learned. So I think a lot of times we shy away because we think, oh, I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to make a fool out of myself, and it's definitely going to happen. But if you don't see that as failure, if you say, oh, okay, well, I just learned another way not to do something. Like, for example, today, last week we did the Zoom call, and I thought, okay, there's something wrong with the Zoom. This time we used Skype, and for some reason I couldn't get the split screen to work. So next time, when I'm going to get the split screen right. So every time we're going to improve. And it's the same with, so the more you say yes, and the more opportunities you get, the more you're going to get. And I'm actually next week, a week ago, somebody approached me on, I think it was on LinkedIn, and they said, oh, Eric, we're doing this round table on Zoom about, I think it's online teaching. Can you join us? And I saw all these great teachers there, like people with a lot of experience, and I'm like, sure, let me go there and just hopefully I don't ruin it completely or say something really stupid. But that's basically what it comes to, is just to say yes. And I want to see Will ask something very interesting. Will, this is I think this is one of the biggest fears, is teaching naughty or teaching kindy kids. And Christina says, today I learned you disliked seafood. Weird, man. I thought we were closer friends. I think I told you, Christina. Well, yeah, I think kindy kids are the most difficult because, as adults, we're used to working with adults, and people, younger students can at least, you can communicate with them. And I always say this, I've got the most respect for the teachers that train to teach kindies, right? Because they have to learn how to use objects and make a lot of toys and backgrounds, and they have to play music. There's so much you have to learn, but it's definitely doable. Nazar. Yeah. Okay, so actually, this is what I expected. It's 10 o'clock. This is my usual time to start the class. Yeah. Nazar, it's so good to see you. Actually, we started an hour earlier because we've got Martin here. I think we'll probably go for another 15 or so minutes before we have to end today. So,
I've got an online class at 2:30, I'm afraid, so we'll have to end in 15 minutes.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to end in 15 minutes, but we're going to stay here and do some questions. So Nazar, everybody, if you've got any questions or comments, please put them in here. I'm sorry, it's I I should have said it a lot more that we're changing the time to 1 o'clock. I'll make sure to say it next time. Okay, Martin, is there anything you want to talk about for these last couple of minutes?
Let's see. We've spoken about CPD.
Let me make it easy for you.
No idea.
Okay, see this is actually a very important thing I'm going to say. When you talk to kids or to learners and you give them something too broad, they cannot think. You need to give students a hook point. And what I did there was completely wrong. I just said, what do you think about? Or if you tell your students, write about anything, they can't write about anything. But if you tell your students, okay, think, that building over there, there's a brick at the very top right. Start your story by writing about that very top brick. And now suddenly there's a hook that you can think about. Let me make it easy for you. Sure. You've got a YouTube channel. What is your most recent video about?
Oh gosh, my most recent video about was taboo topics in the classroom.
There we go. Let's talk about taboo topics in the classroom.
Right, taboo topics. Actually, I came across an acronym called PARSNIP. Never heard of it before, but you don't talk about parsnips, not the vegetable, but the acronym is like politics, the A, I can't remember what the A is, then you've got religion, science, or some other things like that, and it's really quite interesting. But then I shared the video because I thought, well, not many people are talking about taboo topics. It's obviously quite important.
Yeah.
What's best to teach students, and what should you steer clear of when you're teaching students, not just kids but adults as well? And how is it appropriate enough to talk about certain events in the world which are happening now? They're obviously in the news, and if a student brings it up, I touch about it, but I don't focus solely on it. And I try and draw their attention away back to the class of what we were doing. And I shared an experience when I was doing the video about a fellow teacher of mine, really good teacher, and he just made the silly mistake of teaching kids, curse language. And I think, why did you even decide to do that? Why did you do it? It's just one thing you don't do. And one of the kids took a photo of the whiteboard, sent it to their parents. The parents sent it to the school, and the teacher was gone.
That's a horror story. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Christina says politics, alcohol, religion, sex, narcotics. What is it? Isms and pork. Okay, that's interesting, the pork at the end. By the way, I think it's very important as teachers, and I think before I get Ibrahim, we're going to talk about your topic now, and I'll give you I'll talk about kindy teaching now. But before we get to that, I want to say something is that a big problem we have is because teachers are human. We have certain biases. We have certain things that we see, and I think when it comes to teaching, if it does get to a topic like that, I would tell I'll try and be fair and teach both sides and explain, what I think it is. But I make it clear to tell my students, okay, this maybe I don't even tell them my opinion. I think that's better, so that students can say this is what Eric's saying. I say basically this is the one side of the argument, this is the other side. When it comes to curse words or sex or anything like that, I stay completely clear, but because as teachers we're there to do a job, and you wouldn't teach even if that's something for parents and their kids. It's not something for another adult to work with children with. So that's very important. Will, about being a kindy teacher, I know how scary it is to teach kindy students. So a lot of the material I put there, I've got some videos about teaching younger students, and I'll make some videos more in the future. But I want to get to Christina, you asked about formal observations. I'm going to skip that one. We don't have too much time. I might come back to it. But Ibrahim says, how about using teaching checklists to check if you are improving your teaching all the time? And I think this comes back to where we said with teacher professional development, where I said we need some kind of roadmap. So if I asked you, Martin, what would you put on your teaching checklist if you wanted to see if you could improve?
Well, there's different elements when it comes down to teaching. Obviously, you could say, right, whiteboard. Am I using the whiteboard effectively? Is it, used effectively? Do I have different margins? Does it look legible? Can the students see it? Okay, and how can I improve upon the whiteboard? And you could say, right, okay, what I could do is I could take a photo of my whiteboard after the first day of class, and then 30 days later take a photo again and see has there been any improvement. Another one could be instructions, and you could you could get,
am I using it clearly?
And I'm doing this particular task. What's the best way of giving instructions for this task? And, can I improve my instructions? Can I make it even shorter than what I'm actually trying to say? And can I remove the running commentary? Like, I'm just going to get a pen. Okay, I'm going to come back here, right? And
I think that's so great what you're saying. Is basically you're making these checklists that Ibrahim talked about. But basically you're adding to this where you say, okay, how am I going to even improve this further? And I wanted to add that, if you have a checklist or something that you can follow, it will also cover blind spots that you might have, and he said that you can download it down there. We can definitely improve as teachers if we have checklist. I think it's very important. Now, Nazar, because Nazar is one of one of my favorite people here. She says TTT versus STT.
Teacher talking time and student talking time. Well, it depends. If you're going to give instructions, then you're going to be talking, and the students need to listen, and so there's going to be a greater emphasis for teacher talking time. But if you're going to have a natural conversation with the students, then how important is it for students to increase their teacher talking time, or is it wrong for teachers to prompt students with their talking as well? But if the students are reacting together and chatting together, you don't want to overshadow them and talk over them. You want to remove yourself and let them talk. And I think it depends on the activity you're doing.
I think in general, the bigger problem would usually be that teachers talk too much. Either a teacher is new and they're nervous, or not even new, but they're so used to just talking the whole time. If you go into a Korean classroom, they've got very much a lecture style where the teacher's talking for 95% of the time. So in general, as a rule, I think the less you can talk as a teacher, and the more the students actually talk, that's way better. But I will say that if you start your class, if it's your first class, obviously you're going to take a leading role. That means a mistake people might make is say, okay, I'm not going to speak that much, and it's a passive role. Don't be passive, but get your students to communicate, because the less you have to do it, the better. Now, I'm going into this quickly because I've skipped Christina a little bit. She says, Nazar, did you know Eric doesn't like seafood? It's because that's how I was brought up, but I do eat some seafood, but I don't eat shellfish or I do eat fish, and I do eat like shrimp and octopus sometimes, but not a lot. Yeah. But Christina also says free practice. I feel comfortable having control over the answers, and classroom management. Sometimes I struggle with grouping. Yeah. I think grouping, what I like about Zoom right now is everything's automatic. Guys, actually, you know what? We're almost going to finish. I just want to say thank you so much, Martin, for coming on. And it went by so quickly. Check out Martin's channel. I'll probably, if he'll have me, I'll go onto his channel and he'll bombard me with random questions next time. Yeah, Nazar, so I'll go and eat seafood with Nazar just because. And then, and actually, to tell you guys something, next week I will have Christina on. She'll be the guest next week, and we'll try and figure out the split screen. Martin, is there something you want to end on? And guys, last remarks, anything that you want to say? I'm sorry for everyone that joined late. I know that you maybe missed this, but go back next week. It will be normal time at 2 p.m. Christina will be awake then. I'll make sure that we're there. But Martin, anything you want to finish on?
Well, well, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. It's great chatting to you and sharing ideas. And sounds like, it sounds like you've got some great ideas as well, and the experience that you've developed over the time. So thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure, an honour, and thanks to everyone who tuned in. And I appreciate everybody commenting. And sorry I was peering down at my phone from time to time looking at the comments, but thank you for having me on, and thanks for allowing me to have a platform to share my experience and ideas.
Yeah, and guys, if you have any questions for Martin, go on his channel. I'm sure he can help with a lot of things. He's got a lot of strengths that I don't have, because I was just teaching out here, where I feel he's got a much better grasp on grammar and a lot of the books and the Salta, which I didn't do. Now, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Will, thank you for your questions. Christina, you're a star. I'm going to see you next week. Ibrahim, thank you for coming with your questions. And we also had, I'm missing, Elsa was here too. Elsa, and Carlos. Hi, Carlos. Okay. Will, Thailand. And Galina, it was so nice to see you too. You started and then finishing everything. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Next week, Christina and I will fix the split screen. Martin, have a fantastic day, and everyone, I'll see you next week.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.